Okay, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. This is the movie that is on everyone's minds, whether the movie is being attacked or whether it's being praised. This is my honest breakdown and review. I'm not saying that my review is the end all be all, but what I am going to say is I think my review is actually fair. I'm not telling you, or I'm not going to tell you this is the greatest movie you've ever seen. But I want to point out what I think is a bigger, broader, and maybe even wider issue and problem in the content creation space. This is just in my humble opinion. I believe that many people on the conservative side of the geek space are falling into the same issue we have seen on the more left leaning or liberal side of the geek space. There's this constant and incessant need to complain. Now, I'm no apologist for Marvel, DC, comic books in general. If I feel a movie is bad, it's bad. If I enjoy the movie, I enjoy the movie. I think people are afraid to be individual in their movie reviews. There are movies, and I'm going to mention some movies which let's just say many of you who watch my channel probably will not agree with. It's just my personal opinion. Movies I don't like. Pulp Fiction. I never liked that movie. I was never a huge fan of Quentin Tarantino. When I was younger, I did like From Dusk Till Dawn. I think the Kill Bill series was decent. It invoked, for me, that old kung fu karate flick feel when I was younger. But typically and generally speaking, I'm not a fan of Quentin Tarantino as far as his cinematics. Now, he's released some movies that I do like, but as I said, Pulp Fiction, not one of them. I've never liked that movie. That is a cult classic, a fan favorite. I'm not saying my opinion is right, but man, I am allowed to have an opinion. I do not have to like the movies everyone else likes, nor do I have to dislike the movies that everyone dislikes. And I think and I believe in the conservative space, this is exactly what we have going on. The same groupthink that is lobbed at the left, I see going on in the right now. I'm not saying, maybe I'm wrong and everyone else is right, but I'm saying that because my opinion on this movie is definitely going to be different than what you'll probably hear from the conservative geek space, because I've seen people going in, this is the end of Marvel, Phase 5 sucks, so on and so forth. I disagree. Marvel has had some huge, gigantic missteps. Marvel has made the mistake of thinking that they can take geek culture, things that people really care about, infuse ideologies and things that they want to shove, and everybody will be okay with it. And that's just not the case. Geeks want to go and enjoy entertainment just like anybody else. And I don't think just geeks. I think we just want to watch a movie, play a game, read a comic book, and be entertained. I don't want to be blasted, preached at, or anything of the sort. This movie was just entertaining. Now, there are one or two lines, maybe three, where it's I guess you can consider some woke ideas, but it was so passing, and it was done in such a way where it wasn't focused on at all, and you could almost miss it if you blinked. Didn't bother me. It didn't bother me at all. Kang the Conqueror as a villain is so much more menacing than Thanos. Hear me out on this. I will try to do this without giving too many spoilers, but there might be some spoilers in this video. I'm doing this on the fly. I don't have a script, so I'm warning you ahead of time. If you've not seen the movie, you may not want to watch this because I could possibly spoil some things. Kang the Conqueror is fueled by vengeance and the incessant need to be right. Thanos, as much as let's say if the comic book world was real and you were a part of Marvel's universe and you heard the arguments from Thanos for why he wanted to snap away, half of life in existence, as maniacal as it sounds, you could reason, I don't like this, but there's some method to his madness. I don't like it, but I see his point. With Kang, it seems so much more menacing. He just wants to be the only, the ruler, the right. And even though powers wise, I'm not going to get into that. You could say Thanos is more legitimately powerful. But man, Kang, with all his technology and everything he has going, this Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I found myself much more looking to Kang and going, man, this dude is getting ready to wreak havoc. Though I thought that about Thanos, I kind of had the feeling like, all right, the Avengers are going to be able to handle this. There's going to be some things go down. And I made a video. Let me see. I'm going to try to find the title of this video that I made, because I posed a question about Kang the Conqueror that I believe this movie actually answered. Yeah, I said, can Kang do it all? Kang the Conqueror could fix the MCU. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I watched some reviews yesterday. I was going to record a review yesterday, didn't, end up getting around to that. I watched some reviews. I heard what people had to say. People were going in on, and as far as, like I said, the conservative geek space, the more independent leaning geek space, people were excited. I don't know if there's any geek space people I follow that are more left leaning. I'm sure that there are, but I would say the more conservative leaning geek space was the only one I really saw complaining. And the thing is, I think people are so slighted by Marvel for good reason. Marvel has definitely spit in the face of fans in many ways. And when I say fans, I mean geeks, people who actually follow sci-fi, follow comic books, and have followed these things for many years. Marvel has definitely done some things to slight and spit in the face of these people, myself included, almost as though they didn't care about fans, especially if you thought differently than maybe some of their directors or producers or actors thought. If you thought differently, they didn't care about you. And I think because people feel slighted, they want to burn the whole thing down. They want Marvel to burn down and Disney to burn down with it. I get it. What's funny is that's kind of the attitude of Kang the Conqueror, which is kind of hilarious. That's a side note. I think what's happening, and this is just my personal thoughts, I'm sure I'll get some attacks for saying this. I think the conservative space is falling into the same exact trap and problem that the more left-leaning or liberal space has fallen into. This need to see everything collapse when it didn't go your way, even when there appears to be course correction. And in my humble opinion, in this movie, what I saw was course correction. I didn't see any agendas pushed and shoved down your throats. Like I said, were there things said? Were there some woke moments in the movie? Sure, absolutely. I'd be lying to you if I said there wasn't. But it was so not focused on, and it was so in the background that if you blinked, you would miss it. And to make it seem as though those moments in the movie were the biggest thing and the thing that, was just the highest focus, man, I disagree. I think, like I said, this is a well done movie. I heard somebody argue that Ant-Man wasn't supposed to be able to handle and deal with Kang the Conqueror as he did. But I think several things are missed if that's your view. You miss the fact where every villain, no matter how powerful, has their weaknesses and there are things which would expose that weakness. We even saw this in the Infinity War saga. We saw throughout the course of these, different Marvel movies, the different weaknesses in Thanos that weren't necessarily exploited right away. Some of them were noticed, maybe some of them went unnoticed. And in this movie, you see some of the weakness in Kang, but you also see the menacing and very dark nature of Kang. And that is what made this movie. It was almost like watching a slow motion disaster being avoided yet still looming in the background. So at the end of the movie, you see Ant-Man, he's walking and he is feeling good and he's like, yo, I saved the world, blah, blah, blah. He's having this, monologue in his head. And then he begins to think about some things that Kang told him. And he was like, well, but did I? And just those moments right there where he realizes, maybe something is coming. What it's reminiscent of is Tony Stark and Iron Man knowing that something is coming, getting that eerie feeling after the first time he, saw the legions of Thanos, right? When he went into outer space with that nuclear bomb, that really shook up Tony Stark, and he felt like, something else is coming. So what it seems like Marvel is doing is kind of a play on that, but from a different standpoint with Ant-Man. Now, here's what I find interesting. Another complaint. I hear people complain about how Ant-Man is not really that powerful. How did he deal with Kang in this movie? But Ant-Man's suit and the technology behind it is groundbreaking. Pym particles, the ability to shrink down to the point where you pretty much go into the microverse. I think Ant-Man is more powerful than people are giving him credit for. Now, is he as smart as Iron Man? Obviously not. Hank Pym is, and he has the support of Hank Pym. Now, you hear a lot of talks, especially in the conservative space, about the MCU. The fact that it seems like Marvel is trying to go to a more woman-centric comic book hero and control, and it's somewhat organic. Now, there's some truth to that, but I don't think that agenda was really pushed and shoved in this movie. And I've heard people say that, and I honestly believe that's disingenuous. This is what I think is going on. I think people have their jaded color glasses on right now because we've been so slighted. Those of us who think more conservatively have been so slighted by Marvel, DC, and the entertainment industry in general. We exaggerate certain things, or certain things are seen at an exaggerated level. Yes. In this movie, Ant-Man's daughter now has a suit. She is very smart. She creates a device that can pretty much send signals that can be received and retransmitted from the world into the microverse. I don't have a problem with that. The movie didn't focus so much on her that it made her the focus of the movie. And if it was done organically, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. I have no problem. And I don't think people on the conservative, more conservative leaning space have any problem with female heroes. I think they feel slighted, like because of the Me Too movement. And I know I'm getting into more cultural things, but I think this matters. because of the Me Too movement, that these things have pretty much shoved certain ideas in the media and the entertainment space, and they have. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that that hasn't happened. I'm saying in Ant-Man and the Wasp, you don't see that at an inorganic level. I think the script was very well done. Jonathan Majors as Kang is marvelous. He, like I said, he is so much more menacing than Thanos, in my opinion. So much more. This is a very good launching point for Marvel to get back to the meat and potatoes of creating good movies. I have heard many people say that this movie is trash. I disagree, and I'm not going to say these people aren't being genuine when they say that. They probably really do believe it's trash, but I think it might be because they have on jaded colored glasses. This is a well done Marvel movie. You will not be disappointed. There is no agendas overtly pushed and shoved throughout the whole movie. You're not being preached to throughout the whole movie. There's just a good plot, a menacing villain, good battles. Yes, it's a lot of CGI because they're in the microverse. We're in the technology age. I understand people want to go back to the way special effects used to be done, where it was mostly actual live props and different camera tricks used. And yes, sometimes that yields a better result. But yo, this is the technology age. They're in the microverse. Most of it is CGI. That didn't make it bad. This is the best CGI I've ever seen. My mind is not blown. Wasn't terrible either. Again, I'm no special effects guru, but I enjoyed this movie. Those of us who are more conservative leaning cannot get to the point where we become the very thing we criticize, where everything has to be blasted just because these people are the others, they created something, therefore equals bad. I'm not saying everybody in the space is doing that. There's people who legitimately do not like this movie. I am a comic book fan and I am a comic book collector. I am not a comic book buff. I do not memorize entire storylines and story arcs across 30, 40, 50 years of comic books like some people do. And maybe because of that, I don't have the proper view of how these things are supposed to play out. But with the things that I do know, I do appreciate some of the things I see. I understand why certain things are changed. I understand that a comic book movie is not just made for a comic book fan audience. Here would be the problem if that were the case. Are there enough comic book fans worldwide? Now, look, geeks abound. I know that. I'm a geek. I've been a geek since I was about 13 years old. I understand that geeks abound. I'm not sure geeks abound to the point that you could make something in entertainment just appeal to geeks and that thing make money. To some degree, you have to mold and craft this in the best way possible to both maintain the integrity of the characters and the lore and attract people that are not necessarily geeks or into comic books. Those are two things that you have to do. When you look at comic book sales are nowhere near what they used to be. Now, some of that is based on the fact that a lot of comic books suck. Just keeping it real. A lot of comic books just completely suck. They're not good. There are people who push agendas instead of creating a good comic book. I'm not naive. I realize that happens. But I don't put on, I have not been, I guess what's it called, black-pilled? I have not been at the point where I'm like, okay, because these people have pushed an agenda for so many years, everything is bad. That's not true. Everything is not bad. Yes, they have pushed agendas. Yes, they have pushed agendas I don't agree with. I will say this. in this entire, and this is not an attack, but this is the facts. I personally don't agree with the lifestyle. You do what you want with your own life. I don't agree with the lifestyle, but nowhere in this movie was any LGBTQ anything lifestyle pushed. To me, you have to take your wins where you get it. To me, that says, okay, I think Marvel's getting a point. We don't care about all of that. Stick to the integrity of the comic books and make us a good movie. And I think with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, I believe Marvel did exactly that.